how is procurement being done? So we got to start at the top, right? To find the color of money and the trace of money and everything. So I think that procurement and contracting policies are intended to do right? To make it open and fair and competitive. The policy is written with good intent. But sometimes when human factors come into play, right? When we think through how do we create a program or a process of inclusivity? How do we level set so that it's equitable across all certified small businesses and not just favoring one? How do we level set that all contracts equally go to small guys as much as the big guys based on capacity and capability? Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the Procurement Games Podcast and Open Conversation. My name is Lynn Pingle, CEO of Mackie Company, a strategic industry-specific consulting company focused on procurement contracting of diverse small businesses. Now, Mackie Company has assisted nearly 2,000 businesses over the last 20 years, from startup to about mid-stage. We also work with government agencies in designing and creating intentional and purposeful contracting processes that get contracts in the hands of BIPOCs. And what are BIPOCs, you ask? Well, they are our Black, Indigenous, and people of color. Now, Mackie Company has been contracted to create and manage small business resource centers, including the one at the Minnesota Department of Transportation. We are actively engaged with local nonprofit Neighborhood Development Center and Hennepin County's Elevate program in Minnesota, where we provide construction training and technical assistance for job costing, estimating, and construction management. Because we are a industry-specific consultant, public and private organizations tend to come to us to fine-tune their procurement processes, which oftentimes include business development and support for BIPOCs looking for a win in contracting. Now, Mackie Company is based in the Twin Cities of Minnesota, which is Minneapolis and St. Paul, and has since assisted over 178 BIPOCs and women-owned businesses, received over $85 million in private and public contracts. We never take credit for our entrepreneurs' work, but rather we like to sprinkle a little bit of fairy dust in their processes to help them win. So now that y'all know about me, let me introduce my co-host and partner in crime for the second season in a row, Jared Peterson. I know how you love to tell our audience who you are.
I don't like talking about me. Whatever,
I know you don't.
but anyway, I will. Now I'm seeing myself on screen as well. So, it's crazy now that we're on YouTube and have video going. But anyway, I'm Jared Peterson. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I don't like hearing my voice, and now I have to see my face too. So, let's roll with it. Let's roll with the new season.
Let's do it.
So my name is Jared Peterson. I am the CEO of Straightforward. We are a technology orchestration company that takes the customer's problems from various industries, puts them through a rigorous discovery process, puts that out for bid, and makes technology companies compete for the best solution for our clients. And so we do that in many industries. Do it from everybody who's a tiny startup who's just starting out, what do I do next, to that large government organization with the longest sales process and most compliance. So we have processes in place, make it easy. In fact, we're sitting on several master contracts. We just had a post today from one of our suppliers who we partnered with. They put out a press release about our partnership and what we're doing. These things we've learned and we're working on all the way through how to help our clients really just get to the technology services that they need. So that's what Straightforward does. It makes technology purchasing straightforward.
Yeah, well, you're basically the general contractor of technology. That's what I like to think who you are and what you do, but I'm not going to tell you what you do.
Yeah, and it's fun too when you think about what we can do. Some things that we're exploring in 2024 is more of a general contractor type of operation where at the beginning of these developments, we need to make sure technology is a part of it. And so that's one of the straightforward opportunities that we have to go ahead and streamline the technology that goes into a new development, a redevelopment, or office buildings and the like. So when you think of whether it's in construction or in technology, it depends on the lens you're dealing with where you kind of resonate, but we handle both sides.
Yeah, you're kind of like that bridge that connects all the pieces together, which is what a general contractor does. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly.
So I
Yeah.
have to laugh because, I'm here. I forget that, the camera's on and I'm doing this. And then I thought, we should have a crowd clapping button, when something like that is a background noise. I feel like we need that now.
I'm sure there we can figure out how to handle that. But
Yeah,
we'll put that in iteration number 2, or maybe a
there you
season
go.
5. We'll
There,
add clapping.
three, four, you mean, not five. I like that you're jumping into two seasons,
See that? Here, we're gonna add clapping emoji to the we can do that now. See that?
There you go. There you go. I
Clapping.
appreciate that. There you go. There you go. All right.
Listen.
Well, here we are. As you mentioned earlier, we're launching season 3 of Procurement Games, not only on WFNU 94.1 Frogtown Community Radio, but we're also going to be on this YouTube channel, right? Like, are we totally ready for this? Because, you and I talk about this all the time about how we want to grow Procurement Games and everything. And I just feel like from season 1, we were just an audio on our website, procurementgames.org. And then season 2, we get with WFNU Frogtown Community Radio. And that was a huge success. And so now here we are, season 3 launching into YouTube. Like, are we insane? Have we lost it?
Probably.
Yeah. You
I
think
would
so?
say yes. Yeah, probably.
Yeah, probably. That's all you got
Uh-huh.
for me?
I don't know. It
You're
remains to
nervous?
be
No, you
seen.
can't be nervous.
I'm not nervous. I'm just saying, it just remains to be seen. What maybe we are crazy. We'll see what happens. But it'll be
Most
fun. We'll
definitely.
see. Let's be
Well,
an adventure. Let's roll with
it
it.
is supposed. Yep, yep. We didn't know how successful season 2 was going to be, so we'll talk about that in our next episode. But it's pretty cool with where we've come from. 3 seasons later, launching our 3rd season. So since we are in our season 3 kickoff video, we probably should put some historical context of how Procurement Games came about. So. I think I just read your part of that script as I see the color change here.
I wasn't moving fast enough for you, is what you're
Yeah,
telling me. I didn't.
yeah.
You felt like the transition needed to happen, and so you jumped in on the transition.
You look like
See,
you needed to scroll down on your
yeah,
screen.
yeah. You're Jared. You should have picked up on the fact that we needed to roll onto the next part already, and I
There
didn't.
you
So
go.
you just did it anyway for me. But yeah,
All right, all
we
right.
should
Well,
add some historical context to how we got to this point, Lynn.
absolutely.
Where procurement games came from and why it exists and how we
There
got
you go.
to the fact that we're on YouTube now and
I
streaming
know.
on frequency modulation 94.1 on Frogtown Community Radio.
All right, so let's see. So procurement and contracting has always been my jam, right? So much so that we got a patent on a software this past March or a year ago, I guess, as a service procurement methodology process. So I've guided and assisted the private and the public sector, as I said before, in creating these processes that make sense for small businesses, right?
Did I
And
hear you? We got a patent.
we have a
That's
patent.
that's not a. You just kind of glossed over that. I don't
I
understand how you
know.
just
I
just
know.
let that pass without like more fanfare or something.
More meat? Yeah.
Hang on. Reaction. Boom.
Okay, reaction.
Clapping.
Boom. There you go. Patent. And
Clapping.
the site is actually called Procurio.com. And it is a connector of services for small businesses and gives them a platform to be found, right? Because that's one of the barriers. And we'll talk a little bit about that in our show later on. But that's one of the barriers is people are like, we don't know how to find certified small businesses or small businesses in general. And so we hope that Procurio and the platform behind it is something that would assist and more importantly, connect the dots on all the procurement codes that exist in the government system. And with that platform, before it became a patent, I have guided and assisted the private and the public sector in creating the processes that make sense for them and have gone up and butted against institutions and primarily because their processes don't make sense. And so in my quest to try to do some process improvement with the system, it only made sense to create this streamlined methodology process that helps both the primes, the agencies, and then ultimately the certified small businesses. So it was roughly about 3.5, 4 years ago that several small businesses that sit in my workshops and I've assisted, you being one of them, started telling me like, you should do a podcast. You should talk about this and teach everyone the ins and outs of how to win in procurement and share the stuff that no one wants to share because everyone's playing nice in the sandbox, right? So, my son Keegan Gage, Cassidy, Jennifer, Jacob, Cedric, and other youngins that I mentor, sort of like, Mom, get started on this, and it pushed me through this resistance in my head that I'm not ready to publicly engage, because guess what? Sometimes publicly engaging in the topic of procurement and contracting ends up getting you blacklisted, that fear of retaliation. And so here we are, and we took the plunge, and here we are at third season. But Jared, I remember talking to you about this and even coming up with the naming of the podcast, and why the naming of the podcast came to what it is, because of your own experience and how you were just stymied at this process. So talk to us about how we got the name Procurement Games.
It is interesting to talk about because the name Procurement Games really comes from the fact that in procurement, there's a special speak that goes on. The procurement department, they always deal in codes. They deal in a particular type of language. That's one of the things that Procurio is meant to go ahead and level set for everybody, is the fact that now you can speak to the system in your language, and it automatically just spits out what's needed for you in your language, right? Whether that's in procurement language, right? Or if it's in, I need to buy a concrete driveway, I need to install a concrete driveway. Well, what's that procurement number on the other side? But what we found is that when you're dealing with a procurement department, that language barrier, that the mechanics of all of how you get a opportunity through to contract is one that is a big mysterious thing that's never really level in your favor, right? It's never level, and when you say level in your favor, that seems like it's the other way, right? But it's never flat. It never feels like it's completely even. As much as procurement departments want to say they have an open and fair procurement process, it never feels that way. And so what we found is that really and truly in some of these scenarios, we were just playing a game. We were playing a procurement game. We were just walking through the process. Painfully, where this came from was a scenario where we found, where there's a government official who is on the board who in a county, and we put in numbers and we put in a bid. We were the only responsive bidder, but there were some things that happened, and it was me like, what in the world is going on? This is a game that we're playing, and it's really a procurement game. Like you think about like what's going on with the movies that with the Hunger Games. It's really putting small and disadvantaged businesses, pitting them against each other in a small pool, not allowing them to work in the large pool. But then when you try to work out into the large pool, you're playing a game, and it's not something that is completely fair and leveled and open. It never feels like it is anyway. As hard as most of them try to be, it's more of how do we fix that and help small and disadvantaged businesses actually understand the lingo so that they are on that level playing field, understand how they can win, and then even influencing some of the systems that seem unfair to small and disadvantaged businesses, educating the system about where those pain points are.
No, absolutely. And that term that you put out, leveling the playing field, has about 20 different definitions. If it was a phrase to be defined in whether Urban Dictionary or Merriam-Webster, right? What does leveling of the playing field really mean? And when we think about it, the United States has been trying to level the playing field since 1700s. And in terms of trying to make it equal rights, equal fights, right? And in our, I think it's our third episode, we're going to talk about in detail what this leveling of the playing field looks like, and how it's transcended, even bringing about lawsuits addressing how set-aside programs are not really beneficial and actually is a reverse discrimination. So we'll get to that episode and get everybody into that conversation and let everyone know what we're up to with that. So Anyway,
Sure.
so with Procurement Games and the tagline of is what is it again? Is the field ever leveled in your favor? Is that right?
That's how you, yeah, that is
Yeah,
the tagline that we use. And
that's right.
it seems weird to say because you're like, we just want an even playing field, really and truly. But when we're small businesses, we need a little bit of help. And so we do end up tipping over into the, hey, how do we level it in our favor so that we can actually win at this instead of it being spinning our wheels all the time?
That's right. That's right. That's kind of like stoking the fire of the conversation of and everything. And so I'll continue with the goal of Procurement Games, and I'll be very very brief. And this is almost like the thesis of what we're trying to do for Procurement Games, and that is to be a platform for small businesses to talk about what they do. It's free advertising, free promotion, but more importantly, it's a platform for them to share their challenges and allow us, who's been in the ecosystem, who understand procurement and contracting, to provide solutions so that these entrepreneurs can get ahead. And what we'd really like to do is when we do have a problem posed or a challenge posed by any of our entrepreneurs that we look to interview and be on our platform, including those of the Trailblazers, we want to be able to kind of like hone in on, okay, this is your challenge. Here's a potential way to do it and how you would go about doing it. So we want this podcast to really not just be about conversations, which is equally important, but also to provide our listeners and our engaged audience a solution to how they can fix what they're stymied on or challenged with. And I think, Jared, you're a prime example of how, staying in the system and having someone like myself to bounce off and figure out what the next steps are, even in understanding the statutes and the regulations that should be implemented, but is not being. I think you're a prime example of how we can help solve and bring something to improve the landscape even better, right?
Yeah, it's there's wisdom in crowdsourcing answers, and that's kind of what this is designed to do. Is we don't know what the problems are unless we hear them from somebody who's experiencing it, and across all industries and across all different types of opportunities. And that's what Procurement Games is about. Is we hear from the procurement officer who's dealing with many contracts and is busy, and procurement is not easy. But then you also hear from that small business who's trying to meet that buyer who, then you hear the compliance officer and all these things that are going on. There's a huge amount of ecosystem that everybody's trying to make sure that they do the best they can for everybody. And so at this point, the Procurement Games is meant to be a crowdsourcing of answers and solutions for each one of those players in the field, right? So that buyer who needs to get something, the compliance officer who needs to make sure it's procured correct, the vendor who's trying to get it in there. How do we make sure that we make everybody meet and understand how they can play better with each other?
Absolutely, absolutely. So again, bottom of the hour, we're going to talk about like what procurement is and how procurement is being performed. But let me kind of just jump back into where the podcast is today, and how it kind of came into fruition and that type of stuff. So the now that everybody knows how Procurement Games kind of started, we did kick off our season 2 last November. So we started season 1 in 2022, right? And we ran for about 5-6 months on episodes, again on a just a straight website platform. Then we got into WFNU. Shortly after we started season 1, our episode was picked up by iHeartRadio and Amazon Music, which is really pretty cool. And so now we're also on the platform of Spotify, Google Podcasts, and other platforms that you listen to and things like that. I know there was an Apple confusion there. We are on Apple, but we just need to fine tune what is going on there, because we did hear from one of our listeners saying, hey, we couldn't find you on Apple. So we'll make sure we get that squared away. Over the last 2 seasons, we've had a pretty significant following and downloads that we're pretty proud of. And Jared, I don't know if you heard of the latest statistics, but between the 2 seasons, we've had about 248,000 downloads, right?
Wow.
Which is pretty amazing. And so, launching season 3 back on WFNU 94.1 community radio and our very own YouTube channel is really like a forward progress. And that's really kind of awesome, when you think about it. So let's pivot a little bit, Jared, and give our folks a baseline of what procurement is. Level setting our listeners and explaining exactly what procurement is sometimes, befuddling, but the simplest way to explain what procurement is it's the purchase of goods and services. When you look at furniture and paper clips and light bulbs and concrete and dirt, internet service, building bridges, real estate acquisition, these are all examples of goods and services that you can purchase, right? It happens in the private and the public sector. If if you're thinking about engaging in this type of thing, but it also goes across all industries in all categories, whether it's technology, construction, professional services, bookkeeping services, and many more. So Jared, I'm going to hand this over to you because what I want you to do is give us a couple of examples of procurement as it relates to like government. You've been in the mix for the last 5 to 10 years and everything. And let's jump into what are examples of procurement in the private sector and some examples in the public sector, like RFP stuff that you've seen across the board.
Yeah. So procurement is the same process, whether it's a tiny business or it is a large enterprise or government entity. I need something, I'm going to purchase it, right? So when we talk about construction, it's more detailed than I'm buying, say, toilet paper or goods like that. You're technically buying, say, a road or a building, right? It's many processes that go into actually purchasing that item, but that's construction. However, you are literally just purchasing a road. You are purchasing a building, right? So that's procurement. I'm going to purchase something, and I need this thing. Sometimes you can purchase, and then you'll also purchase labor, right? So I will purchase a person to go ahead. I will hire a person. That's not the wrong way of saying that, but however, I need this task done. I need this many hours of this person's task. And so I'm going to purchase that person's time. I'm going to hire that person. So all of that is procurement. However, the complexity of purchasing grows based upon how large the organization is. You think of a small business who needs somebody to come in and install something. They hire them for 4 hours. Item gets installed, it's been quoted or whatever the case is. There's a hard quote, sometimes it's a T&M quote. So here's what you're saying is I'm only going to pay this amount no matter how long it takes. That's a hard quote. Sometimes it's a time and materials quote, which means I'm going to put that thing in and it's whatever the time and materials cost in order to go ahead and put that in. Small business might have a small, short sales cycle like that. However, when you get into large government opportunities, you're dealing with requests for proposals, and you're dealing with laws and statutes, and because you're looking at how to make the process as fair and open as possible, because there has been so many times where there is large government budgets where there is corruption and the like. And so the more money that's involved, the more opportunity there is for corruption. And so you get these rules, processes, and procedures in place in order to go ahead and make sure that the entity that's purchasing is getting the best price and best service without any corruption involved inside of their processes. To the best, ideally, that's what they're going for.
Absolutely.
That makes sense? Did I give enough there?
No, I think you did. And I think, the bottom line is when you think about procurement, it's time, like you said, hiring of people, and to perform the work, the labor part of it, the materials, the supplies it's going to take to do the work, and the actual and/or service, right? As a consultant, I don't necessarily provide materials, but I do provide resources, intelligence, knowledge, and there's compensation to be made at that. And there are programs out there for certified small businesses were set aside specifically for women-owned businesses, veteran-owned small businesses, economically disadvantaged businesses, and minorities, right? Communities of color who are emerging as entrepreneurs and such, and including the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program that falls under the United States Department of Transportation, right? And such. So, yeah, that's sort of what we're looking at in terms of examples of what procurement can be. So, Jared, you've got a line in here that I think you're missing.
I might have missed it.
You
Probably
see it?
did because I was making sure we were on time.
Yeah,
You know.
I know. Yeah, I know you are. You see it? I'll give you 30 seconds and I'm going to jump in. Uh,
So, our listeners are going to be like, this seems simple enough. Is it really worth having a whole podcast for several
right,
seasons podcast over and over and over again talking about it?
right, exactly. So the answer
I'm
would
going to
be a
buy toilet paper. I bought toilet paper. Why in the world do we have a whole podcast over buying toilet paper?
right. Well, to answer the question, the answer is yes. Yes, this is an important thing because to buy toilet paper, as the government does in Parks and Rec, right? All the bathrooms that you see at Parks and Rec, they had to buy that toilet paper from somewhere. They didn't buy it at Costco, even though, with the pandemic that just happened, they might very well could have. But in order for them to purchase that volume of toilet paper, they had to, quote, procure it. They had to sign a contract with Procter and Gamble to buy toilet paper. But the set aside programs allow for not just a direct purchase to Procter and Gamble or Cottonelle or whatever. The set aside program allows small businesses who may not have the volume, right? Might not have the volume of toilet paper in their warehouse. So the set aside program says, hey, we identified a small amount of businesses that can sell perhaps $100,000 worth of toilet paper versus $1 million worth of toilet paper. And what's happening is that gap between the big guy and the little guy, namely the certified small businesses, isn't connecting. We aren't seeing those opportunities, and it makes it challenging for us to even find those opportunities. There are so many facets in procurement that is related to small businesses, and procurement in contracting is just really one important facet. One of our hopes for this podcast is to provide small businesses and even trailblazers, right? Our trailblazers are the ones, your DEI supporters, your purchasing departments and government agencies, your contracting departments and government agencies. All of these guys are trailblazers that are really helping push certified small businesses in an equitable position. That's really what's important here. The key word is equitable because when you look across the board, it is not equitable. Therefore, the playing field is not leveled. Again, I go back to this podcast is important because we want to be able to give you solutions that make sense for your own business. Each business is unique in its own way, right, Jared? Technology, construction, and within each of these industries, there's subcategories, right? There's subcategories. In construction, you can be building bridges. You can supply the material for bridges. You can be the labor for the bridges. You got clearing and grubbing to make sure, and so on and so forth, right? Same thing with real estate development, same thing with manufacturing. So our hope is that we can come up with solutions that make sense. And we want to make sure that together our voices are definitely more powerful if we're bringing about the challenges that we face as small businesses. It's not just a number that we're checking, oh, she's a woman, she has the same disadvantages as the next one, but rather each individual business is unique in its own stuff, right? So, Jared, now that we know what
Yes.
Procurement Games is about, how do we share? How do we find out about Procurement Games?
Well, Thursdays at noon is our new episode featuring entrepreneurs and trailblazers, and we invite you on that journey to hear their process, what they do, why they exist, and what makes them tick. The issues that are raised, their stories are what come out on Thursdays at noon. And so if you have questions about them or about what's going on with them, you can email insights@procurementgames.us. And then we bring up those conversations on Tuesdays. Bring up those questions and those burning things that you've got about what was brought up on Thursday. We bring those up on Tuesdays.
Awesome.
Yeah. And here, we're at the bottom of our hour, and because we are also broadcasting on WFNU 94.1, there's a pause for station identification where we dive into our hot topic for the day. WFNU is a volunteer-run organization made up of many different community voices. Each program expresses one aspect of this diversity and is not the view of WFNU or Frogtown Tuned In as a whole. WFNU is a local nonprofit that provides meaningful 24/7 broadcasting in the Frogtown community in St. Paul, Minnesota. Please consider donating and supporting the station so it can continue its work of being Frogtown's voice. Each donation to WFNU 94.1 FM is 100% tax deductible. You can donate at WFNU.org and click donate. So let's talk about the big elephant in the room next, Lynn. That's procurement and contracting. How is it being done?
So procurement and contracting, how is it being done? Are we going to have enough time to knock this out? I don't know. This always gets us going because what we're going to talk about later on is your favorite topic of directories.
I love them. Directories are my favorite topic.
Is there an icon for sarcasm? We should find one. When you say I love directories, it's kind of like,
there, right there. There's my sarcasm about directories. I have the porn thing, porn and ribbon.
So now everybody knows what procurement and contracting is about, right? And so
well, it's in the directory. Just use the directory. It's the best thing for you. That's the best way for you to get involved, is to use the directory.
There you go. So
I say that with sarcasm. Hold on. Where's my
sweet sarcasm? That's right.
Use the directory, because that's the best way for you to get involved with procurement and contracting, is to use a directory.
That's what I'm going to say. So how is procurement being done? So we got to start at the top, right? To find the color of money and the trace of money and everything. So I think that procurement and contracting policies are intended to do right? To make it open and fair and competitive. The policy is written with good intent. But sometimes when human factors come into play, right? When we think through how do we create a program or a process of inclusivity, how do we level set so that it's equitable across all certified small businesses and not just favoring one? How do we level set that all contracts equally go to small guys as much as the big guys based on capacity and capability? And these factors become a consideration when it comes to implementation. And because those factors are human influence, that's where it gets kind of squirrely and we face the challenge that we face today. The other component of how procurement is being done is that the resources and tools being provided to those who must carry out the torch, who must carry that task of equity and procurement, that's challenging, right? Because not most people see them as gatekeepers and preventing them from really getting to the bottom of how procurement is being done. There's usually another party. There's a buffer between you and the project manager who's in charge of what needs to happen, or the buyer what needs to happen, because there has to be some distance between the person involved working day to day and procuring the goods and services versus the DEI or the administrator or the specialist that is pushing out the proposal, right? And so because there has to be a disconnect, a neutrality, sometimes certified small businesses get lost in that shuffle, right? We think we're being assisted, but sometimes there is that barrier. What do you think of that, Jared?
Well, when we're small businesses, we need to partner a lot of times, right? A lot of times we need to partner with somebody larger, right? So whether that is you are the small contractor who has labor only, and you're going to be on a construction project, or if you're delivering a technology service, you are really and truly not going to be able to be the prime contractor on that project. You're not going to be able to be the one who is able to fully deliver the quality technology solution to that entity, because you're just not big enough. Just flat out not big enough, right? So what happens is that partnership, is something that a lot of times you're not able to get as a small business, because one of the first questions they ask you is, what's your relationship with the buyer? However,
Right.
the problem is that you're not supposed to have a relationship with the buyer, right? That's not how that's supposed to work. However, that's the first question everybody asks you. So sometimes that human factor of, here's the policy, and the policy is probably written correctly and probably written in a way that goes ahead and makes sure that there's a separation of purchasing power from the actual process, so that there isn't that view of impropriety. Sometimes can be done in a way that still adds to the fact that you're just still not in, even though it's supposed to be blind, even though it's
Yeah.
supposed to be open and fair. You're just not able to compete because of certain factors, and it depends on the process, and it depends on the RFP, and it depends on the entity that's dealing with it. Some are better than others, and all that. But that's where a whole podcast on this stuff is needed, because there's so many different ways that these things are done.
Yeah, so many different interpretations of how this thing's just done, right? And folks, we're not here to say everybody's doing wrong. Agency, the public and the private sector, they all got it wrong. That's not what this is about. We're not here to complain, to do all this stuff. We're really looking at real life experiences and challenges that you have faced, just like Jared and I have faced, because we're also certified small businesses. And we want to have a open conversation about it. All right. It's in our name, podcast, open conversation. We want to have these open conversations because we know that the DEI, the diversity, equity, inclusion officers, we know that the purchase agents, we know that the RFP contacts, we know all of them are aware of our challenges. And what we don't want to happen is that all of them have naturally assumed that we all have the same challenges, which we do to a certain degree, right? But the more they hear the uniqueness of your individual experience as it relates to the implementation of their procurement and contracting practices, that's what this podcast and this platform will assist. I got to tell you, there's a lot of trailblazers, a lot of agencies, a lot of private sector folks that do tune in to our podcast, and they're listening. And we've seen the amazing work that we have contributed to improve processes. One being Met Council, right? We had a podcast with Ashanti Payne last year, so tune in season 2, and he gave us some amazing insights and amazing opportunities to what Met Council here in Minnesota is doing, and you know, just in the technology alone, right? They set up another topic that Jared loves, a goal. And it was what I like to say, it's a do or die goal baseline of 25% in their technology division. So if not applicable RFPs with technology in it, there's 25%. And I know, Jared, you can probably elaborate a little bit more about how the policy was intentionally good, but because you and I came in and provided some insights as to how to find small businesses, this 25% came about. So touch a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's a win that was interesting, because the hearing from in the public procurement process there, the they thought they could hit 30% on this goal. It's and that was, it was interesting on the podcast, was we found out that came actually from the business unit. So the business unit, the IT department, said, we can set a 25% goal. We think we can hit 30. What happened when the contract came out? They hit 50. They hit 50 because now we helped them understand what the processes were, helped them that there was availability there, and then they were able to go out and help with that. So and they were able to hit that 50%, which that's amazing in a technology request. And the other thing that they brought up too in the awards notices was that they're actually beating the state pricing that was offered to them by the state of Minnesota on the
Wow.
state pricing. So
Wow.
so they're getting better pricing. They're hitting the socioeconomic numbers. They're beating the socioeconomic numbers that are available to them, and that was a win-win for the department all the way around. So
Yeah.
and for the companies that were involved, most of them hadn't had a chance to be a part of the Met Council's procurement processes before. I at least from I guess I should say I should assume that, right? That was the case because they had only assumed that they could get 30, and they got 50. So there's somebody in there who got in that they hadn't even thought of before. So it was pretty neat stuff.
Well, and that's a phenomenal example of, again, the intent of the policy was good, and it took our voices to bring awareness to, hey, did you look at it this way? Did you know that these individuals, certified small businesses at that, existed and can actually perform the work? And if you just fine tune a little bit of the language here, it's actually going to open more opportunities. And again, I'll go back to Ashanti and Met Council and the IT department, which again, commendable for their efforts to realize, you know what, we can do a base. We're going to start out at 25%. And if we exceed it, awesome, right? And that's exactly what the technology division did, or the IT department did at Met Council. For any technology firm who's a certified small businesses, hey, you might want to look into Met Council here in Minnesota to see what opportunities are available and such.
We should also say that this is still a competitive bid process.
That's right.
Even though they hit at 25%, that was the goal. This 50% still competed and beat out larger firms because of whatever factors they were, whether it's local or the local factor or whatever the cases were. The fact that they hit 50% wasn't just because they wanted to hit 50% with BIPOC or women. It was because those 50% beat out larger firms and had a chance to compete and compete in an open and fair market. So they would have hit their 25%, which is great. But the fact that they hit 50% means that they were looking at at vendors who didn't view or that were maybe not meeting their goals in the first place. So redoing the process altogether allowed them to look at vendors who they hadn't maybe never thought of government before as being an opportunity to be successful. Now the business unit's getting diverse and different providers in there. Still, it's a competitive process. It's not just about hitting a diversity goal. It's about making sure that the business unit's getting what they need, along with the fact that we can look at diverse voices and opportunities to also fulfill that. So that's what's pretty cool about seeing that, because diverse perspective is what makes a well-rounded solution, right? And whether it's personalities that are in the room or life experiences that are in the room or contributing to a process, that's what's neat about hitting that 50%, is that now they're looking at vendors that they had never looked at before, possibly, or the like. So anyway, that's me rambling. I'll shut up now.
No, that's okay. No worries. You got another line here that you got to position. So, just waiting for you to catch up.
Well, I was on a soapbox because I wanted to make that point. I wanted to make that point that it's not just about the socioeconomic numbers. It's about making sure the business unit gets what they need. So if you're a business or a trailblazer and you're dealing with whatever issues you've got going on or would like to tell your story, we're inviting you to come and have a conversation with us. Tell us about what makes you tick. Why in the world are you doing what you do today and what you're wanting to do in the future? And share your story of the pain points you've had along the way, issues that you're still dealing with. Maybe we can crowdsource some answers from either from the crowds or from our trailblazers or from our entities that listen alongside of us and want to help make it easier for you to be a success in business as a small or a diverse business.
Well, and when we look at it that way, sometimes you're so close to the problem, you can't really decipher it. You can't see the forest for the trees type of situation. And what I love about the solutions that we were able to recommend or even identify is that It's solutions that make sense for us as certified small businesses. And I feel like, if they understood what the solutions are, we're not coming at them with, flaming torches and pitchforks and attacking them as a you should, you should. That's not our game at all. It's more of a joint effort to collaborate on a solution that fits both entities, right? The private or the public sector, and then the certified small businesses. And let me pivot a little bit because I want to talk about what you said earlier, the leveling the playing field of work and if it's actually happening. Because Jared, statistics show it's not leveled, is it? Not
Yeah,
leveled at
no,
all.
I don't. We'll see. I mean, there's a new disparity study coming, going to be done, and we'll see what the numbers say.
Yeah, absolutely. But across the United
Maybe
States,
something's changed.
maybe. But across the United States, now we did a small business audit, right, for the city of Rochester, where Mayo Clinic is based there in Minnesota. And we did a series of comparisons across the board because the United States has a lot of disparity studies that happened sometime between 2015 and 2018, right? And so several years back, there were all sorts of US disparity study programs that revealed that minorities were not getting their fair share and the opportunities presented are still not allowing us to win. So is it really a level playing field? Because there's the language of fair share, there's the language of equality, and there's the language of equity. And again, anybody and everybody can counter it with may the best person win, may the person who can perform the job win, and so on and so forth. And if that was the case, there should be no reason to have disparity studies because everybody's winning. And if we look closely at the individuals who are losing, those who are losing are predominantly women and minorities. And there has to be some level setting there. And I think about the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program, where the majority, it's a minority-based program where women of any race and any color are playing in the same field as communities of color. And while that's all well and good, and acknowledging that there is a discriminatory factor in there as a woman and as a minority, our non-minority counterparts are getting contracts to a tune of anywhere from 94 to 96% of the US purchase power, right? So for every million, right, 960,000 go to our non-minority counterparts, right? And so that leaves 4% to be haggled over as low-hanging fruit to communities of color. We have to look at that statistic to determine, well, what is a level playing field? How is that leveled when it's a 96% to 4% or a 93% to a 7% ratio, right? There's conversations about gender neutral and race conscious programming that removes consideration of both. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in our third episode because there are things that are being rocked. The boat is being rocked on these types of neutrality because of a specific lawsuit, right? So let me shift gears, Jared. And let's talk about the barriers that exist in procurement and contracting. And again, a reason why this podcast is important because we want to address some of these barriers. We want to find solutions. What has worked for you as an entrepreneur? What has worked for you as a trailblazer in the private sector, in the public sector? And this is almost like a journey in the procurement and the contracting process in the public and private sector. Namely, I want to kind of shift first and talk about good faith effort and what that means. We've got about 10, 12 minutes left of this podcast, and I want to hit as much of these bullets as possible. And I feel like good faith effort is a good place to start. Then we'll dive into the directories, the goals, and so on and so forth. So good faith effort, Jared, explain that to me.
I am general contractor Jared, and I am commissioned with, or I've received a request for proposal to build a new library. The library is required to have minority participation in the tune of, I don't know, 10%. So what I do is I send out a notification in order to try and encourage diverse businesses to be a part of this, submit their bid for each of the items underneath that project. So whatever it is, hey, we've got clearing and grubbing, we've got trucking, we've got sheetrock, concrete
Wallpaper.
work, wallpaper, fit and fixtures, technology wiring and electrical wiring and HVAC and all of the items that go into procuring that building for the city or municipality or library authority or whatever the case is, pavilion, I don't know what it just in general. And so we submit that, we send that out and say, hey, go ahead and throw your bid at me. And that's your well, that is an attempt at a good faith effort. That's probably the most minimal amount of work that would be involved in a good faith effort. And you'd have to report how many diverse businesses you sent it out to, how many were contracted and the like. So some entities are more stringent than others about follow through and the like, making sure that the right people were invited and everything. But that's basically what good faith effort is I received an RFP, I sent that out and sent to small businesses to try and get them to be a part of the overall project because I was trying to meet that goal.
Sure. And then there's other examples of good faith effort, right? You can have meet and greets about the project. You know, we send out emails is one way. We invite you to bid. That's what Jared was talking about. There's the meet and greet where, hey, we're going to host an event and we're going to talk about this project. So you have an opportunity to meet your project managers who are involved or your estimators that are involved in this project. And you know, some may make phone calls, right? And such others may just stop at that email. And there's all sorts of different plans and strategies for good faith effort, but are they effective? Questionable. You know, as early as this morning, I received a opportunity to help build a building in one of the cities, and I don't build buildings. I don't have an NICS code, NAICS code that even applies to me, but the prime, the individual who was sending the RFP, get to check the box because they sent Lynn an email. That's the good faith effort. Now, you talked about they get to send this email out, which leads to your favorite topic of directories. Talk to me about how much you love directories. In a good way, not sarcastically.
Oh, okay. Well, directories are good. Every single I shouldn't say every single municipality, but directories, the majority of government entities have some kind of directory that they'll tell you that's the best way in order to go ahead and be a part of our procurement process. That's how you get found. And the problem with directories is that it's always procurement focused. It's rarely a something that the buyers are very enthused about using. It's rarely something that the small businesses really enjoy using, because now you got multiple. You can deliver toilet paper to anywhere in the country. Now, how many directories do you got to be on in order to engage with city of Minneapolis, city of St. Paul, Hennepin County, Ramsey County? Each one of them have their own directories. Or you know what, let's go to Rochester or Duluth, or you know what, I can deliver toilet paper to El Paso, Texas, right? So the thing is that the directories, while they work for the business unit or maybe for the procurement entity, they're rarely a great use of time for us as small businesses. It tends to be a waste of time because your address changes, phone number changes, whatever the case is, you add a new NICS code or whatever. Now, how many directories you got to maintain? Not only that, they're not really all that descriptive on the entity trying to procure. So you'll have that general contractor who's like, well, I'll just send an email out to everybody in the list. Well, I don't build buildings. I do very little in that building. As a possibility, right? So I do strategic consulting, like Lynn was just talking about. That's not really my jam. But you still got the email. You had to look at it. Or whatever. You can ignore it, and then you miss opportunities. And so directories are my favorite topic.
Yeah. Well, and the hard part about directories is, again, the accuracy. It's updated on an annual basis. Let me focus on the DBE directory. Every state in the United States has a unified certification program. And so, for instance,
it was an attempt, because they recognized the problem. It was an attempt regionally to go ahead and take care of this issue. But
that's
anyway,
right. Yeah. It helped me find the certified small businesses. And there's some advantages to the directory. It is the most oftentimes the recommended directory to use, whether you're in the private sector or the public sector. Universities, colleges, they all have their own directories. We have a colleague who's in the health department or in the healthcare industry that has to pay to add her name to a directory, right? So that these corporations that are looking for certified small businesses can find them. And that's one of the things that I look at, because when we think about directories, you question its effectiveness. You question how it fits in the good faith effort, because everybody's just downloading everybody's email and sending an unintentional invitation to everybody in that directory, and in the hope that it will help them meet the goal set by the project, right? And folks, goals in projects are not set at a random. The procurement office or the purchasing department in the private sector or the public sector actually does this thing called market research to determine, it's supposed to determine if a particular line item or a particular category has sufficient certified small businesses who could bid on it. If you do not respond to an email, because as an entrepreneur, we wear only a million hats. If you don't respond to that email and say, yes, this is something that I can perform, then the possibility of getting a goal set for the project diminishes. So I encourage all entrepreneurs, I know you're busy, I get it, I understand, to take a moment to see if you can find yourself in these opportunities. The crapshoot of it all is you're going to have to go through 200, 500, thousands of pages to see if your particular skill set is even required in an RFP. That is where Control F on the PDF. Control F. That's where the rubber meets the road. Because 9 times out of 10, for instance, this morning, the RFP that I received specifically did not include my NICS code. It didn't. So I had to, however, scour through a couple of 100 pages to disprove that I don't need to respond. And when I responded, I said, not going to bid, and added a comment. I don't build bridges. I'm a consultant that assists certified small businesses get contracts, right? And that lets them know.
You're not going to build an abutment to a bridge?
No, I can't do it.
That was one of my favorite codes to find in that. That was abutment.
There you go. Let me hit a couple of other bullet notes since we've got a few minutes here. The RFP processes and how we challenge them. Again, in our last season, we had Mitch Davis of M. Davis Consulting, and we talked about the steps you can take to review an RFP and challenge if you lost. And folks, again, Mackie Company, shameless plug, we do teach you how to respond to RFPs in one of our workshops. So, fire out an email to us, insights@procurementgames.us, and we'll let you know when the next workshop is for how do you respond to an RFP, or how do you put a program together. IDIQs, why is that a barrier? Contracting and like IDIQs, why is that a barrier, Jared?
If you're not on it, you don't see the lead.
But is it also they've got a big guy doing it and they know that they can't compete on the numbers? That's why even include certified small businesses? Is that also part of it?
I'm not exactly sure what the thought process is on it.
Yeah.
What I do see is that because okay, it took me 3 years to get my first IDIQ. Just landed. In fact, we just had that was that press release today. So,
I'm pressing the imaginary crowd noise.
yeah,
Yay! There you
tough,
go.
right? So that was part A, part two, part B should be coming soon here too as well. But it took time. It takes effort. It takes, oh, man, how long do I gotta wait in order to get on that thing? And
And
so
then it's not guaranteed that they're going to buy it from you, but you're one step closer, correct?
yeah, yeah. But
Yeah.
if you're not on that IDIQ, you won't see that leak because they'll just purchase it right from there. And so it takes a large organization to be, or patient, in order to be on that IDIQ. And most small businesses don't end up wanting to wait that long. They're looking for what's coming, what closes today, what closes tomorrow, what closes by the end of the week, what closes by the end of the month, what closes by the end of the year. 3 years down the road to have a wish at something, well, guess what? That's a little tough. So
That's right.
that's why IDIQs are they're a license to sell to government, but they're you have to put in your time. You have to put in
Yeah.
your time to get on it.
Yeah. So this is the most often, right? So I sit in rooms, I sit with entrepreneurs on on a day-to-day basis, and we help put together bids, we help to put together responses to RFPs. And the disheartening conversation is wrapped around this. Primes have their favorites, and we're probably not going to get chosen. So, Jared, first, let me ask, what is a prime?
Prime is basically the company that is financially and fiscally and legally responsible for the project. They're the ones at the top. They're the ones that the money goes out to from the government entity or the purchasing entity to go ahead and pay for whatever it is.
Perfect. And when they talk about I mean the entrepreneurs that are in our realm. Um, you've done it. I've done it, right? They end up giving it to the same people, right? So to me, this is where policy and the intent behind a policy kind of come into play, right? So primes and their favorites is a big barrier because it
Well,
doesn't allow for
it
new
makes sense.
blood
They've
to
done
come
it
in.
before. They've
Yeah,
done
they've
it
done it
before.
before.
It's just I don't have to worry about it. There's no problems going to be coming back at me because I know they've done it before.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. And then lastly, before we wrap up, the industry specific barrier challenge, and technology is one, right? One that this faces. Why is tech such a hard industry to penetrate?
It takes a large amount of capital effort in order to get your technology company off the ground.
Yeah,
Is one of the reasons. You also, in order to be in procurement, you also need to you need to know the buyer, right? And you need to be able to be in the same, a lot of times, same social circles in order to go ahead and find those opportunities. Or you need to be on the IDIQs, or you need to be whatever the case is. So there's a lot of barriers that exist in the technology realm in order to be a part of it. However, it is one of the most diverse industries that there is. So there's a lot of opportunity there as well.
oh, absolutely, absolutely. Well, you know what? We ought to wrap up, Jared. And I know I want to re-echo what you said earlier about inviting our entrepreneurs to join our podcast. Send us an email at insights@procurementgames.us, and even our trailblazers, because we want to hear your story, what you're doing right, what you're not successful in, and let's see how we can shed some how-tos, how to get better, how to win, and such. This coming season, we definitely have a lot of hot topics that we're going to talk about. So make sure you follow us, like us, bookmark us, and obviously on Thursdays at noon, tune in on WFNU 94.1 FM. Next week, we are going to revisit some of season 1 and season 2 episodes, just sort of like a recap. So we can share with you some of the exciting conversations we had and continuing conversations around that. And these are the entrepreneurs in the Twin Cities areas and the trailblazers in the Twin Cities who have really sparked an amazing interest in procurement and contracting, and really our show. So with that, Jared, final thoughts?
It's going to be it's going to be an interesting season. So YouTube, video, I'm going to be busy, a whole lot of video editing and man, podcast studio is quite fun to put together. That was been interesting. So we're looking forward to seeing how that plays out on YouTube.
Absolutely,
And
absolutely.
on Frogtown Community Radio.
That's right, and Frogtown Community Radio. So with that, we want you to, keep your chin up, look towards that low-hanging fruit, but don't forget to look up, because guess what? There's more tree ripening up there, and it's just waiting to come down and open that opportunities. We look forward to seeing you guys next week, and Jared and Lynn out.
I was supposed to have that audio ready. Guess what? I failed at that. I didn't have it ready. Here we go. Ready? Here we go. Done.